That weird kind of feeling. It was Halloween. The village was covered in decorations and I'd prepared enough candy to feed an entire school. It was about 6 in the evening when the first group of kids started to make their way down the road. Some of my neighbours were still making those last-minute adjustments to their houses, whilst others tucked themselves away behind cars ready to jump out and scare anyone who got close enough. There was a huge deal of pageantry about it in my village, and I loved it. Then there was the guy across the street, with just a single poorly carved pumpkin perched upon his doorstep. I guess some people make more of an effort than others. Who am I to judge? After 3 or 4 hours, the trick-or-treaters had all but gone home, with the exception of a few stragglers. You know, parents who'd been working late and had only just made time to take their kids out, and those few groups of teenagers more intent in causing trouble and messing about than actually trick-or-treating. But it was the guy across the road. I swear he invited the first couple of kids that came to his door inside. Then, nothing. Maybe he just got annoyed with them and decided not to do it anymore. But it was weird. All the lights in his house were off. The only sign of life was that singular dying flame of that poorly carved pumpkin. I would have thought it was someone he knew, but it just seemed off to me. I just had that weird kind of feeling about it. This feeling lingered with me. Several times over the next few hours I heard the passing of police sirens as they took off down the road. Each time I would get up from my sofa and check outside the front window just to see if anything was going on. But as soon as they passed, silence resumed as normal. I jumped up. The noise came from outside. I darted to the window to see what was going on. In the ever-darkening night, I could see the silhouette of the guy across the road. A short, fat figure, shadowed in darkness. He'd knocked over his rubbish bins whilst carrying something down the drive. I checked the time on my watch. It had just gone past 12 o'clock. I stood there, continuing to stare, trying to keep myself as hidden from view as possible as I watched him scramble to the floor and pick up the bundle he'd dropped. Slowly but surely, he opened the boot to his car and tossed whatever it was into the back. His overweight form clumsily shuffling around to the driver's seat before squeezing himself inside, hardly pausing before starting up the engine and driving away. I kinda just stood there for a moment, not really sure of what had just happened. Dude was a weird one for sure, but I couldn't shake this feeling. Normally, I wouldn't care what people do. They have their own lives. But in that moment, I decided to take a look. Heck, I felt crazy even just thinking about it. But what harm could it do? Just run across the road, check out his house, and get back before he gets home. I snapped up my phone and my keys and poked my head out of the front door, taking a cursory glimpse up and down the road to make sure there was no one about. With the road now completely empty, I slipped outside into the cool night air. Alarm bells in my head started to ring as I began to make my way up his driveway. In the eerie silence of the night, I could hear the faint and muffled sounds of moans. A shiver ran down my spine as I moved closer to the window. Did he leave the TV on? No, there were no lights at all. The moaning, albeit still faint, grew louder the closer I got. It was when I pressed my face to the window. In the subtle glow of the moonlight, I saw a pair of legs stretched across the floor. The rest of the person they were attached to were obscured from view behind a sofa, but I could see them moving. I tapped at the window, and that's when the panicked moans and cries really started to begin. I was shaken. I didn't know what to do. I tried to shout for them to calm down as I ran to the front door, hammering on it, desperately shaking the handle trying to open it. People were starting to come out of their houses now. Worried faces peered through windows as others started to run over. I tried to kick down the door, but to no avail. The thing was heavy and locked tight. I grabbed my phone and began to call the police as a couple of guys came over and demanded to know what was going on. I didn't have time to deal with them right now. I just pointed to the window. In turn, I witnessed each of them realize the gravity of the situation as their faces mirrored mine from a mere moment ago. As the crowd began to swell, I started shouting down the phone to the police to try and convey what was going on. A scream pierced through the night air like a knife. As I saw a group huddled round the bins towards the bottom of the drive, I made my way to them, circled by horror-stricken onlookers. Was the tattered remnants of a child's bloodstained Halloween costume, and a couple of very small, severed fingers. The police ultimately arrived and broke down the door. After several excruciating minutes, officers escorted out the young girl who was still bound. Poor thing was white as a ghost, disheveled and bloody, but she was intact. They still haven't found the guy from across the road, or the other young girl. Just a series of sick notes he wrote as he... Those poor girls.